What's up, guys? Your boy, 22K13. Gonna talk about 6 reasons why WWE badly needs an off-season. Whenever WWE start going through a dismissal period of creative stagnation, which is usually about once a year, a segment of the audience who are proponents for the concept of adopting a traditional sports model that utilizes an off-season make their voices heard. This is a complex issue where sides both in favor and in opposition are able to make an articulate compelling case outlining their stance. For WWE part, there is little doubt that as long as Vince McMahon is alive, there will never be a time when the company isn't operating year-round. So expecting anything to change while he's still in charge is an exercise in futility, but one we as wrestling fans engage in on a constant basis. An off-season could provide a shot in the arm to an industry that's been in status for several years while still clinging to the old mantra that the business is cycle. Is there anything to the belief that WWE would benefit from an off-season? In this article, 7 reads are laid out on why we think that doing so would be a positive move for the company. From a talent, business, and fan experience perspective, and then we're going to follow that up with 3 reasons why we certain it's never actually going to happen. Number 6, for the health of the roster. And by the way, this comes from whatculture.com. This one is the easiest to understand out of all the reasons we'll be listing. If you lessen the amount of days a talent is required to work, you limit the wear and tear on their body and potentially extend their career by a significant amount. Take a look at the amount of wrestlers who are shelved for long periods of time to injury, and oftentimes much of those are the result of accumulating damage. Daniel Bryan in particular would likely be in far better shape had his body had not been put through the ringer due to the hectic schedule he worked and the aggressive style he employed. And for those with minor nagging elements, the period of inactivity would grant them ability to rest up and heal without having to miss any scheduled appearances, which is taboo in the world of wrestling. Preserving the health of the roster should be a top priority, considering they are literal backbone of the business, so this entry is a no-brainer. Number 5. Recharging the creative battery. There's a reason the territory used to be a revolving door of bookers to run their program. Areas like Memphis would keep their bookers on a 6-month rotation, with Jerry Lawler and Jerry Jarrett alternating back and forth to avoid burnout. Many old-timers subscribe to the theory that any longer than that and you run the risk of your creative well running dry. The late Dusty Rhodes is an example of this. At the height of his run, he was booking some of the best wrestling shows and angles of all time. But when he ran out of steam, he and the promotion crashed. The WWE and their staff of dozens of writers already struggle to churn out compelling television programs on a consistent basis, and that's with the input of an enormous team of writers, many of whom had no prior background in pro wrestling. Taking 3 or 4 months out of the year not only gives the mind of charge of scripting WWE a chance to recharge their battery and devise some new and fresh idea, it also gives them a chance to employ a more long-term booking strategy and outline the programming months in advance rather than the last-minute napkin scribbling we constantly hear reported. Number 4. Establish an aura around stars. There's a reason that Brock Lesnar moves the needle in such a huge reaction, and it had nothing to do with the audience love of Jimmy John. The guy had enough heat to turn a weight into a mosh pit, and it reflects whenever he's on screen. While a large part of that can be contributed to the simple fact that he's Brock fucking Lesnar, conqueror of all things, you have to also credit how sparingly he used with helping to accomplish that. That's not to say that you're ever going to build that kind of must-see aura around everyone on the roster, or even a decent percentage of them. The beast incarnate is a once in a life cycle of an entire species type who can't be replicated using genetics or science, but that's no reason to think you couldn't make people more special just be throtting them out in front of audience less. When Hulk Hogan was WWE champion in the 1980s, you rarely saw him wrestle on free TV, only the big events and house shows. It was a special occasion and people paid to see them. The same was true for The Undertaker during the early and latter part of his run, and that gong wouldn't garner the same response as it does today if we heard it every Monday. Give these guys some time out of the spotlight and make it a big deal when they appear. Oh hey, there's Dolph Ziggler. I haven't seen him in 3 months. It's preferable to Dolph again. How many times do I have to watch him wrestle? Sheamus this month. That leads to apathy, which leads us to number 3. Combating fan apathy. One of the most dangerous emotions a business can instill in their customer is apathy. For a perfect example of how it pertains to wrestling, let's examine the Daniel Bryan pandemic from 2014 as opposed to 2015. In 2014, the fans propelled Bryan to the main event of WrestleMania through sheer force of will, kickstarting a movement that caused WWE to open their eyes and put the Washington for all he was worth. The following year began with the same dichotomy, but WWE resisted repeating history, this time potentially for the best considering Bryan's health, and the build for this year's big show was met with an alarming amount of disinterest from the fans. That's not to say that WrestleMania 31 wasn't a success, but heading into it all signs pointed to an audience who wasn't interested in buying what WWE was selling. And ratings and crowd reaction reflect that. If you want to stir up some passion in your fans, don't hammer them over the head with massive amount of content. Game of Thrones just ended after an apology brief 10 episode season, and already fans are chomping at the bit for the show return nearly a year from now. Meanwhile, there's no sense of urgency to anything WWE does because if you miss an episode of Raw, not only will you get another one every single week, that follows from now until the end of existence, but you'll also be battered with a near infinite amount of recaps and rehashing. It's just not good for the product. Number 2, making things important again. Let's face it, there's no sense of urgency anymore in any other show WWE put on outside of WrestleMania, the Royal Rumble, and to a lesser extent, SummerSlam. These shows used to be known as the Big Four, with Survivor Series rounding out the quartet. But you can argue that in recent years, Money in the Bank has replaced Survivor Series in the hierarchy. As for all the rest, if you miss one, no big deal. The sheer amount of pay-per-views and programming that WWE produced turned their show expendable, and the lack of consequence for most of the results contribute to that. With Survivor Series 2014, we were witnessing what was promoted as the end of the authority, If Team Cena lost, only for them to be back in power less than 2 months later, many other B-minus shows fall victim to this same booking program booking problem in that nothing really matters long term. And now WWE has taken the regular slate of events and tacked even more big shows that are network exclusive, which is a massive amount of wrestling. That would all be fine if more than half of them didn't feel like they were spinning wheels and leading nowhere, because the company has to pad out these cards. We get 4 straight pay-per-views of Cena versus Rusev, when 2, maybe 3 at the most, when have been more than enough if you lessen them amount of shows you produce. You increase the importance in the event themselves. As a fan, if you know WWE isn't going to run the same match for a quarter of a year or longer, you'll be more inclined to follow along closely with the product. As it stands now, almost every show is expandable, and most of them are nothing more than glorified episodes of Raw. Number 1. Strengthen the network through NXT. One way to combat the lack of wrestling on TV during the off-season would be to make NXT a temp from it. Not only do the talented at the Performance Center need the additional time to continue honing their craft, but it would draw eyes to the future superstars that WWE hopes to promote to the main roster eventually. Only a fraction of the current Raw audience watches NXT, something you'll never know by the reaction to guys like Neville and Kevin Owens. But if you take away the weekly wrestling fix, then perhaps more fans will be included to seek out NXT, which in turn obviously benefit network subscription. Think about how popular HBO Hard Knocks series is. The follow one NFL team through the entirety of their training camp, documenting their ups and downs, and giving the audience a glimpse into the players who will or won't be making the team once the season rolls around. The NFL has mastered the art of creating anticipation by keeping their season short and involving their fans in every step of the off-season process, such as turning the draft into an event unto itself that draws nearly as much attention as the actual game. That's a model that WWE should pay attention to. In addition to that, you also make the network a much more appealing option for fans who are still yearning for the wrestling during the time off by continuing to produce original material such as the excellent WWE 24, highlighting the archives and making them seem important, and putting out content that stirs up excitement for when WWE returns. Now that we lay out reason why an off-season model would be a great idea for WWE to adopt, it's time to float back down to earth and re-enter the airspace of reality and explain the 3 reasons why Vince McMahon would never allow it to happen. Number 3. TV rights fees. While the new contract with NBC Universal wasn't nearly as much as McMahon boasted to shareholders that it would be, it's still the essential lifeblood of the federation. It was widely reported that WWE was expected to double or triple their previous number, when in reality they only increased to $200 million. There's no WWE universe in which NBC Universal would be on board with the promotion, scaling back their programming from weekly shows to utilizing an off-season. And while we're not privy to the inner working of their contractual obligation, we find it hard to believe that it's not strictly prohibited, even if there were nothing controversially prevented it. With a huge financial hit the company had taken by moving to the network and cannibalizing their own pay-per-view business, this would be short-term financial suicide. That's not to say it wouldn't pay off in the long run, but until the new model was established, it would kill the WWE. Bottom line. Number 2. Massive drop in ticket and merchandise sales. The previous business model for pro wrestling before Vince killed the territory was to use television programs to build your live event, house shows, and make your money off tickets. The WWE revolutionized that model by not only reversing the importance of TV and house shows, but also by being the first company to truly grasp the importance of marketing merchandise to their audience. If they were to reduce the amount of shows per year, they take a serious hit in the amount of live event tickets they sell. Merchandise could be a little trickier to predict, as it's not unreasonable to assume with good brand awareness that people may continue to purchase shirts and other items during the downtime, as once again, pro sports teams don't seem to take a huge hit in these areas when employing the same model. The counterpoint to the reduced amount of ticket sales is that if WWE were to play their cards right, they could potentially increase the size of the arena they run in, make up the lost revenue, since seeing a WWE show live will not as easy as it once was with 2 or 3 shows per year in each market. But once again, there's no way that Vince and company are willing to take those short-term losses in hope of establishing long-term gains. And number 1, tradition. When you strip away all the numbers and metrics, what you left with is plain old-fashioned stubbornness and resistance to change. The year-round business model is one that had already worked for TV since the Monday Night Raw era began. And despite fluctuation in quality and rating, it paid off for the most part. Vince McMahon is a creature of habit resistant to change and by all accounts has had to be dragged against his will anytime the company has made any radical shift, such as the move to the Attitude Era, where when he gets an idea in his head, there's simply no changing his mind. So there's still hope yet. About a fading one. We willing to bet that if their company were to switch to this schedule, even just as a one-year trial run, it would go a long way toward reigniting some of the kindling interest in fans of the company, many of whom have been following the industry for decades and are kicking and screaming in protest while they fight the dissipation of their interest in the entertainment they once loved. Well, that's it, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. See you guys on the next one. Peace.